Greetings. We're here at Dynamic Cutz. I am Denise Camille, urban love therapist, relationship and self coach. Coming to today's topic. So we do definitions first. How do we define grief? What is grief? Is it a feeling or is it, you said an emotion? Okay, yeah. Would you say it has an actual action to it? Like, does grief have a look? No? Grief doesn't have a look? Okay. Does regret have a look? So let me see somebody like, oh, if regret ever had a face, it would look like this person.
I don't regret nothing.
I just if you regret it, then. So, but you said grief is an emotion. Okay. So is guilt an action or an emotion? Guilt? Guilt's an emotion. Grief is an emotion. Is one stronger than the other? Huh? Depending on the person? So let's say, okay, so today's...
You can feel guilty.
You can feel guilty.
But not regret it.
Okay, but what if we just deal with grief and regret? No, grief and guilt. I'm sorry, the two G words.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see how long the wait is. Is it walk in? Y'all take one in. How long is the wait? Okay, right. Okay.
So grief and guilt, right? They're not the same. So today's quote is actually guilt weighs heavier on the heart than grief.
Yeah.
Right? Would you say that? Guilt weighs heavier on the heart than grief. Okay, so let me give you an example, right? Let's say you're at a funeral, and family, of course, what a funeral brings on arguments and battles or whatever, right? Most people that are there that are more in their feelings are the ones that are guilty for not treating that individual right before they transitioned, right? Because grief comes in waves, right? Grief comes when it comes, right? Yeah, but guilt is like, that sits on your heart like a brick. Have you ever had that experience yet?
Yeah, being guilty.
Of like, let's say somebody passed on you, like, damn, I didn't treat them right. I feel some kind of way.
Yeah, but I ain't care.
You're not where?
I ain't no, I said, you're guilty. I said, I will agree with guilt.
So you've never, so you haven't had the experience of feeling guilty of mistreating somebody while they were alive. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you don't do people wrong while they're alive. Right, so what I'm saying is those that, don't start y'all, those that, if you ever get a chance to experience somebody else's life, you'll see some people actually mistreat those that have been there for them, right? And then when they do pass on, they be the first ones trying to throw themselves in a coffin or, oh God, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's guilt. That's not grief, that's guilt.
That's guilt and regret.
Well, guilt and regret going, but I wasn't even talking about regret. I was talking about just guilt and grief. There's a difference between the two of them, right?
Yeah.
Because regret sits with guilt.
Yeah.
They like what? Related? They brother and sister? Or they cousins? I don't even know. But you can regret not treating somebody right only because they're not here anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So that grief part, like you said, grief come when it comes. You can't just say, oh, I feel some kind of way. Grief is gonna hit you at any point in time in your life, right? Yet you recognize guilt is going to sit with you differently than grief sits with you.
Yeah.
Why is that?
You can agree with somebody else feels that you're right. Like, I can get fired from a job.
Right.
So be grieving my floating in blue. Eat my money.
Okay, so that.
I can be grieving with a bottle.
So you're grieving in different ways.
And I can be smiling at the same time.
So would you say you would do the same thing if guilt kicked in?
No, you don't do the same thing too.
Why?
You probably look different.
You'll look
You
different?
probably look different.
What you mean? Your energy would be different
Yeah,
too.
you probably be sitting there with that ball looking sad in here. But I mean, you can cope whatever you want to.
So would you say that grief and guilt creates the same type of coping, but not the same type of mechanisms to cope?
Grief and guilt, yes.
Because like you just said, you could actually be drinking, but your different forms of how much you drink depends on guilt or grief, right?
Yeah.
Because you might drink heavier if you're guilty. Because you're like,
Get
damn.
out your head.
Right. Because you know you're wrong,
No, you dead.
but you don't want to acknowledge that you're wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you ever get out of that guilty motion?
No, it might fade, but you'll still be guilty
You'll still feel guilty.
until you forgive yourself.
Okay. So how would you describe somebody who's forgiving themselves after they've done guilty things?
I said, well, look at them
To my liking.
You said treat them somebody what?
The next person better.
Huh?
The next person better.
Okay. Like you see where, let's say for example, I'm sure you've seen in movies where they treat the father wrong, but when the sons come out, they want to make sure the son get taken care of in every avenue because they knew they did the father wrong. That's guilt, right? So here go the son thinking, oh man, this is my godfather the whole time. I got to make sure he good, not knowing you're the one that sold out my father in the streets, right? That's guilt could look like that too, right? People will say, oh no, I'm just grieving your dad. No, you actually sold him out. You were the sellout, right? So would you say that?
Like that girl that they called the police on that what's that nigga name?
The rapper.
Young Scooter called the police on some lame shit, and then the police and running from the police and breaking his leg or something. He
Uh-huh.
was dying.
Oh.
Now she in jail.
Because
I
it's
bet
a false call, yeah.
she feels
It's all
guilty
made
as hell.
up.
She guilty
On his
and she
birthday.
guilty.
So she was angry at him for whatever reason.
Made up some shit.
She told a story about him,
Made the story up. People lie.
the whole story up.
Call the police. Police come to him. He get to running, break his leg, nigga out die.
On his birthday. What they lock up, is it premeditated, they said? Or just lying to the cops?
That was her line. She
I would
got
say
in trouble.
premeditated. She
It has to be
He
premeditated.
ain't even in trouble.
On his birthday.
Knowing damn well that she lying. He ain't do nothing. She just lied on him and then him being a nigga, I'm gonna run.
Right, I'm gonna run from the cops,
And
right?
break his leg and being out die.
Wow.
He had to break his femur, bro.
I don't think he bought it because it made artists.
He had to hit a major artery if he had to bleed out from a broken leg.
Even if you break your leg, you can bleed out and die.
Really?
Man, if you break this bone right here, you sure? You sure?
Like he had a major
I
artist.
guess we'll have the intermission right now. Okay.
Break your femur, you can definitely die.
It's one of the songs you want. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. So that motherfucker break.
Maybe he got like septicemia on the way throughout. I don't know. Anything could have happened. He could have had cirrhosis, not cirrhosis. What did I say? Begins with an S, and your iron is low. I don't even know. What's it called?
I feel like
I don't even remember.
he messed up.
Okay, so either way, he didn't survive off of a lie. So now she's in jail. So she got to deal with guilt.
and she breathing fro.
And she was wrong because now she got to not ever realize she got to forgive herself for what she did. Okay. Out of control. Out of control. So with that grief and guilt, just being mindful of the fact of how guilt can keep you in a place of being stuck mentally until, like you said, until you learn to forgive yourself for what you did. He's still trying to Google it? Okay. I think he is. I think he is.
I mean, either or. Some of them kill, bro.
And then he died. The cops didn't kill him, he just died, and then the cops got him.
Yeah,
But I know broken bone came from it.
I ain't been to the kill you. If I break the bone and I hit something, I bleed out, it gets
But the bleeding out.
Now the bleed now is probably what got him because he lost too much blood.
But you could die, just like, well, you ain't elderly yet, but elderly, you die.
If they break a hip, maybe. Because again, their bones are already fragile. Right? Right, their body takes longer to heal. Right. What? That's called love. Okay. So at the end of what time is it? We're not even that far into it. So it's more of how do you address forgiveness coming from guilt. Because that's a hard pill to swallow anyway. Knowing that you're the guilty person, do you even start to say, hey, I need to acknowledge and be accountable for what I did?
I don't think you ever get over the situation. I'm pretty sure she don't lie to nobody else.
Well, that's just you get out. So, but
it should never be okay with the situation. Should never be okay.
you don't know that. Some people don't have conscience.
Yeah, should never be okay with herself.
But I'm saying she might be because she might have a conscience to begin with. Because if you thought it was okay to lie on somebody, call the cops. That's premeditated. That's what I'm saying. She might not have a conscience.
Lock her ass up.
And she might be okay where she is. I mean, think about the woman. There was the woman who was a Caucasian woman. And she had, I think, like 3 to 5 kids. But her husband was very abusive. So she ended up snapping one day and she killed him. She ended up going to jail, I guess 25 to life or whatever. When they did the interview with her, she said she felt so much more free now being in prison because she felt like she was in prison with him.
That's crazy. Yeah, I feel like it's her fault for you to go that far. She should have called this and been told somebody.
Well, you can't really say it's her fault because at the end of the day, if you have children,
It ain't that easy.
I was gonna say, wait a minute, what are we talking
She's
about?
going to work. She can go to work and be like, look, I ain't coming home today.
If you have children and you're married, right?
You go on vacation. Hey, but yeah, I feel like this is.
What is he talking about?
Get the kids, like, oh, we just going over to get some ice cream. Now I got the kids in the car, I got me in the car. You went home by yourself, you never coming back.
That sounds like a strategized plan that somebody has to
I feel
have.
like,
Where you gonna go?
it was a hard decision.
Where you gonna go?
Nigga,
You
she
gonna
can
live
figure
in
it
the car?
out. Lock that nigga up. Hey, that nigga put his hands on me. Don't get his ass, get the house right now. What are you talking about, bro? It's a hard decision, sure. But Shawty could have definitely did something before killing him.
I was gonna say, wait a have you ever been married with children before?
Hell no.
Okay, so
It's a hard decision, but what I'm saying is you don't gotta sit around no abusive situation. That's a choice.
I get that part. I get that part. I get that part.
If she would have got a gun and killed a nigga while he was abusing her, she would have been alright.
But she snapped at the last moment because he was fighting with her and she couldn't take it
I don't
anymore.
think she should have got in trouble.
I don't think she should have got in trouble.
Was sitting around that long.
I don't think so. I definitely don't think so. When you're married with children, that's an investment. That's a true investment.
Yeah, investment
That's a
is
sacrifice.
That's
No.
crazy.
It's just a conversation.
I feel like if you sit around, that's your fault.
Not necessarily.
Everybody put their hands on me.
I get what you're saying, but you're not married. You've never been married with children. Okay, so he's like you said, the fantasy world. So when you are married with children, the sacrifices are higher than your own personal decisions. So for her to have snapped, she obviously said enough is enough for her.
Yeah.
Yes, the children are here. They'll probably stepladder children at that point, she said, and she just couldn't take it anymore. So she said she felt so much better in prison, free with him now because he was a monster in her life. And even as a married person, there's so many obstacles you can't jump through when you're married compared to when you're single. What he's talking about, that can happen when you're single.
Where you gonna go?
And again, if he was the type of person that pulled her from her family, where you really gonna go? And you got little children under, you probably got like 5 under 10. So, right, the routine is that set up. So I was just saying that guilt, I don't think for someone like her, she felt guilty for where she was in prison because she felt that she was more in prison outside than she was
I
inside.
don't think if it's been multiple
Occasions.
where call the cops for this type of stuff and
Right.
going on and you do snap, I don't think you should get in trouble.
I mean, at that point, it could have just been self-defense.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if he killed her, you know what I'm saying, you see it coming. It's leading up to it.
Right.
So, hey,
It really is. It really is. So that's why I was saying guilt weighs heavier on the heart than grief for those that choose not to do right by those that are around them while they're there. So I'm sure he would have, and I think with even, again, we weren't there with that whole situation with that couple yet. Everyone has a choice to do right by themselves and a choice to do right by those around them. So even like you said with the girl who called the cops and everything, she could have chosen to just say, you know what, I'm done with you. I'm not I just can't take it anymore. But instead, she took it to the other extreme, called the cops, made up a lie. He's running, and then he ends, right, and now he's no longer here. All because she felt some kind of way about him, right? So to me, it's more of, how does guilt treat you when you're not treating yourself with the right grief, when you're not dealing with your own grief? Because most people that are guilty have not ever grieved themselves from hurting. Because those are the ones that are treating people wrong. Right? So if you treat people wrong, what is it? Hurt people, right?
But who's saying that they're treating people wrong because of reason? It just might be in.
No, but what I'm saying is, let's say I had a traumatic situation in my childhood. I meet you as early adulthood, right? I never healed. So I'm going to pretend to be nice to you, but I'm trying to stab you in the back because I'm hurt. So I'm going to bring you, misery loves company, right? So I'm going to bring you in down with me, right? Then let's say, okay, you think, wow, you really care about me. Something happened to you and you end up passing. I'm still alive, but I'm thinking like, damn, I didn't treat him right because I could have healed myself first. So the guilt of me not feeling right about treating you right, you're no longer here. I can't even ask for forgiveness. That guilt is going to sit with you. Well, it's going to sit with me like, damn, I could have done something better all this time. I could have took care of me first. Yeah, but nobody's looking at the me first. Like, let me heal me first before I go into the, and somebody else will, I'm going to mess up their life. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I was saying guilt weighs heavier on the heart than grief does. Any questions? I know we kind of short today. Yeah. Any questions? No? Y'all good? Okay. We good. All right, y'all. All right.